So I desperately needed to make this video. I think I might know where my sister is buried. I think I know where my sister is buried. Could possibly be wrong, that I may have seen her tombstone. I don't know. This individual said something. Snoop Dogg's cousin, twin, and he pointed over to some dead flowers that had been sitting on a sort of on the table that looks like a casket where you put a dead body. And he pointed over to me like he's the authority over my dead sister, and he says, "Is this yours?" And it has a bunch of like cereal and a bunch of shit on there and some flowers, right? Because she's dead, and who's going to get the profitable gain? And since he's tug of warring over her profitable gain, and this is the spiritual and mental state and metaphorically state of this dead little girl, you know he's doing this for his niggas and for President Barack Obama, because he's brought him up several times in the discussion, and he knows who he's bringing it up. But I was thinking, speaking of her dead body, or speaking of her tombstone, I want to say, if I did see her name somewhere, she's buried, I think, in the same cemetery lot that my dad is buried. And I don't know if when people get cremated, if their ashes get, because I want to say that I don't know how all funerals work, but I think when people are deceased and they want a burial plot, they can still get a burial plot, but they'll be cremated, and then they'll be put in a urn, and they'll be placed in a urn, and you get buried like that, or they'll bury your ashes in the plot. I think that's what they do in some cases. But I want to say I walked by her plot, or I was walking by and I looked and I saw her burial plot, and I saw her. I don't know. The reason I say is because I remember looking at the last name and it said Melendez, and I looked at the first name and I want to say I saw Miranda. And the reason I say is because I was walking to look for Sarah Palomo's, which is my dad's first wife, burial plot, and my grandpa Joe, his wife, and Robert Palomo, and burial plot. And I think I had an uncle that's buried there as well. And I was walking by, and I did find Robert Palomo's, but I came across a tombstone that I want to say that I saw that kind of caught my attention, because I noticed the last name said Melendez, and then I looked at the first name and it said Miranda. But when I looked at it, I didn't recognize this was my sister, but I remember thinking to myself slightly of this little girl. I don't know why, and I remember, I want to say that she doesn't have a fancy burial plot. I mean, it looks exactly like my father's. Like, it's just about the same size of my father's, and it doesn't have, I don't remember if it had any designs, flowers, engraving in it. I want to say it was just a flat tombstone, didn't say anything. And it didn't have any flowers. It didn't even look like you had a place to put flowers like my father's. And I want to say that I think it could have been near Sarah Palomo's, which is my dad's first wife. It's near her tombstone. And I want to say she's near a tree. And I think I walked by somewhat close to a tree, and she was near that. But I remember walking by and just seeing Miranda Melendez. And but the thing is that I don't know how they used to, I know they used to many years ago they had infant babies and they buried them in different places. But I thought they separated men, fully grown men, from children. So like if a 10-year-old kid dies, they don't bury them with like elders, or like they have like they usually keep the younger children at a better burial site. But I don't even think that's the case in all cemeteries. But I thought I would say something about this. I don't know if it was her. Maybe it must have been somewhere else, because this is the only burial plots that I ever came by looking. And the only one I would have came by looking would have been either at Robert Zarati's, this burial plot, which is right across the street from my father's, or my father's cemetery, and that's where my grandma was buried. And one of the things that I found disturbing, to me it doesn't make any sense, and to me I don't believe it, because I've never heard of anything like this before ever. And this is why I don't believe, because they're doing psychology and all kinds of crazy shit and making up shit for whatever reason. I recall being very young. I recall I've been in funeral homes numbers of times and cemeteries more than I've never even seen anything on TV where you can bury someone and then be buried right on top of them in the same burial plot. Because when you come and you rest to give somebody's respect and their flowers and a ceremony, even after the burial, you have two individuals in the same burial plot, so you actually don't know who you're giving this tokens to, and it sort of disrupts the ability from the separation from giving a healthy ceremony. Like you're kind of doing it for this person, but you're doing it for that person. And my uncle has a burial plot already paid for that's my grandma's already buried in, and when he dies, he's going to be buried in, and it already has his name on there, and it has his first birthday and his day of birth, and the date of death. It hasn't been written in engraved yet. So I've never seen anything like that before in my life. But I do know that my uncle's burial plot is right above, is insane. Like they buried my grandma, and then when he dies, he gets buried. And to my understanding, you can't do that. Like, I want to say morally you can't do that, but I don't know what the circumstances are. And I think if that was a lie, then you would do something like that, because my sister is buried at that same burial plot, that same burial lot. But I remember walking by her, and I remember thinking I thought Ivan's sister, and I thought, for some reason, because I couldn't remember her name, Miranda or Marissa, but I couldn't even remember whether her name was even Miranda or Marissa at all. Like, I didn't even know what to begin with a first name. I didn't figure out her name was either Miranda or Marissa until I was like 38 years old or 39 years old or some shit like that. But I remember walking by, and I saw the burial plot of my sister. And I remember thinking like, gosh, that'd be crazy. That was Ivan's sister, And I kind of remember thinking to myself, is that my sister? For just a slight moment, I don't know why. I don't know if people want to call it, I wouldn't say intuition or something, but I remember kind of feeling like that's a little kid. Like, I remember thinking, because if that was that little girl that was buried there, I remember thinking, that's a little kid that died. Like, I remember that was a very sad death. It was very sad death, because I knew the whole story, but I didn't know that I was there and looking at my sister's funeral. So my mother's twin took me to that cemetery looking, and guess who's disrespecting that? Because that's not your husband. You didn't know who that person was. That was my father, and that's not your husband. And you weren't there for any of the experiences other than, you know what. you would need an internal trash can, because as soon as my mother shitted on that grave and everything else, you could clean up President Barack Obama and Kenneth and Sarah and Ken and all them. I could be wrong when I say if she's not buried there. I'm going to go try to look for it one day, if I ever can. In my opinion, if she was buried there, in my opinion, I don't think they'd let me find it. I mean, I don't even think it'd be worth me looking for it, because if I went there looking for it and I knew it was her, they'd change the burial plot, or they'd remove the tombstone just for the day, just so that, you know, whatever, they wouldn't let me see it. I think that she's buried there. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Maybe it was something, because maybe it was a different last name. Maybe it was close to Melendez, but I want to say I thought I saw a Miranda Melendez. And I remember looking at the date. I was looking at the date of birth and death. I don't remember if I saw maybe 40% chance that I could remember, 30% that she was. I noticed that it was a little girl. It was a kid, someone that was like in the 15-year-old range, somewhere around that age. I don't know. Thought I'd make a video on that.